suddenly everyone knew that it wasn't just racy stock driver 37, it was and so it kind of caused the difficulty for himself. But the client at that stage had a very organised system for dealing with problems. They weren't monitoring, but they had a quick system for dealing with reported problems, and then they kind of made a decision on how to do it. And that's happening more and more now. I think people are going, look, if you let us know about something, we'll make a call about it and we'll remove it. I think it's a practical way of resolving it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it's all heading. You know, as more and more money goes into these things, these issues become much more serious. You know, maybe one day there'll be, I think there's been quasi-judicial operation in Second Life. I think someone said, Chris, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, some solicitors set up an online court system basically, but unfortunately it was the judgments were unenforceable, so really it did nothing.
And the legal fees only lived in lab dollars.
Yes.
Look, I mean, it's in a sense a wonderful issue, but there's, I guess, one of the points of my presentation is that theoretically they have the power to resolve these issues in a way that could well be much better than how we deal with it outside, with long and expensive court processes and lawyers in dark suits spending endless hours thinking about things.
In terms of change of original designs, for example, uploading a new design of a car which is similar to another car, or music soundtracks in the background which have certain beats or a number of bars of similar music to original artists. As it becomes property which can be traded between an owner of intellectual property to another owner, when you acquire the property, do you automatically acquire all the risks related to the creation?
So imagine I create something, you then perhaps illegally copy it, create a new object, and then sell it on to Chris over there in the corner.
Yeah.
Does Chris then acquire the danger of me having a go at him?
Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The way around that is, in a legal sense, a series of promises. So when Chris buys your virtual car, the best thing would be for Chris to say, now, in writing, you promised me that your car is completely your own car, you created it yourself, you haven't copied someone else, and it's all clear of any claims. Now, if you're after a quick buck, you go, yeah, sure, no worries. And Chris would wander off and start driving around in his IBM car. And then me as IBM would say, Chris, you're infringing my copyright or trademarks or whatever it is, and you've broken the law and I think you should pay me some money. Chris goes, what? I bought it off this guy. He told me it was fine. He told me he got a license from IBM. Okay, I've never seen this guy in my life. Chris can still be liable in copyright if he was entirely innocent. I didn't know that he was infringing IBM. Then there's an argument for a lesser payment. But what would then happen is that Chris would try to track you down and say, you know, and then might sue you for the amount that he had to pay me. So kind of the trail follows itself around. Is that tackle the question?
Kind of.
Oh, I'm sorry, explain.
Yeah, that's what I'm after. I mean, the amount of change that would have to happen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, as in, what degree of change would one need to make in order to avoid that change? In terms of copyright, the law says that if you reproduce the entirety of something, then that can be infringement. It also says, excuse me, if you reproduce a substantial part of someone else's work, then that can be an infringement. Sorry, excuse me. Now that's a bit of a vexed question. What is a substantial part? The cases tend to say that it's not about quantity, it's more about quality. And so if you were to take the creative essence or the key valuable parts from one thing and put it into another, that could be considered a substantial reproduction and therefore an infringement of copyright. Now, an example in the musical world, which is not strictly speaking correct because Beethoven's copyright long expired, but if you've got Beethoven's ninth, however many thousands of notes that might be, if you took out do-do-do-do, then those four notes could well be a substantial reproduction of that much larger work because you are taking the recognisable bit. And that's been the guts of a lot of those sampling cases, particularly ones in America where there's just a really recognisable riff going on in the background. People go, oh, that's De La Soul. And can be a substantial infringement because it's the bit that you remember. Sorry for those who use flashes. Does that provide a bit more guidance? Sorry, it's a bit of a woolly area, but there are a lot of myths out there. You can take 10%, this, that, and the other. Under Australian laws, there is a 10% rule in relation to some book copying. But for the context of what we're discussing, you look at it kind of side by side. Ask yourself first, is it actually copying? Two people can come to the same position independently, but if they look exactly the same, then there's the kind of assumption that there's been some copying. And then say, side by side, has there been a substantial element from one to the other? I wish I could be clearer, but as lawyers like to say, it all depends on the circumstances.
The other thing I was interested in is if you take virtual world, for example, and it's Simpson in New York, and I know I don't understand the question is how the film industry does it, is that, for example, what Simpson is, you've got like how to go past and walk past the cameras, and you can't kind of see there, and it's all real world stuff.
How do they get clearances for it?
So they have to get clearances on the New York cab company.
Yeah, believe me, I've spent many hours sitting there watching DVD, pausing. Is that a Coke can? I'm going to talk to Coke. Broadly speaking, if it's a kind of panoramic shot where you can't pick up names and faces, and that's you're fine. But as soon as there's any element of focus, you start getting into the risk area. We did the legals on a beautiful Bhutanese film called The Cup, which if anyone saw it, story of monks playing soccer in Bhutan, and their great love of soccer, and how they ended up getting the game into their monastery. And there's this goddamn Coke can that was drifting across the scene, and we're trying to keep it super simple. The budget wasn't very high. I was going, oh, can't we just cut that bit out and get rid of the Coke can? But no, integral to the comment about East-West. So we had to get clearance from Coke. They were fine, but you have to go through the process. Now, the Americans are much more neurotic about those types of clearances than Australia. The laws in that respect are fairly different. And so a lot of the clearance work that you in fact have to do in Australia is in anticipation of American distribution and the level of what's called errors and omissions insurance. errors and omissions insurance that you need to get, so the insurers need to go through checking absolutely everything off, and lawyers like me need to swear on their mother's deathbed that there aren't any infringing rights in there and it's clear to go. I think we need to swap for other people coming through, but thank you very much for listening, and happy to field other questions outside if you like.